Wow, that was a really thought-provoking end-of-day keynote from Dory. I have given talks to Dory myself, and it's always amazing to re-listen to her and reframe what is exactly at stake here. I think two things I'd like to point out. One is the way Dory uses the word technology. And technology, like a plow, could be seen as a technology as well in an agrarian society before we industrialize that. So it's really important, I feel, as designers, we pay a lot of attention. The cloud was another one that Dory brought up, and the cloud is just a server farm. And I was speaking to Rob Maslin before about data centers and server farms, and it's funny that we bring it up. So when we see something quite unsexy, an infrastructure layer, if you think about a system as a stack, and the data centers and the data farm is the infrastructure layer, just like the earth is the infrastructure layer to plow on using the technology. So hence you can then scale up with your farms. If you're self-sufficient, you grow for yourself. But once you industrialize that with tractors and what have you, that's where we start losing that one-to-one ratio and connection. So for us as designers and developers and creators to take control, we really have to first take control of our language, because being on the marketing and advertising side, it's very easy to use language and create a very beautiful picture, create the desirability, get led into that, and then you create, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and then create a very different opportunity for people. So that's something I'd love for you guys to reflect for day two. We've been discussing a lot about language, but we have to get this totally sorted out, the vocabulary we use. And I think that would be something that we can take on to the next part. And then finally, there have been so many topics we've covered here today. I've been listening to colleagues outside saying, oh my God, we've covered everything from material science to like Steph's talk on data visualizing and talking about beauty, graphic design. I mean, there's a whole kind of smorgasbord of topics. And we want to try and make sense of it. So Vasant and I were having a chat.
Well, I'm not going to be able to make sense of it. What I can certainly do is tell you what we experienced today, because there's been so many things that we have heard, right from the calls to action and the sheer focus of government and government-associated bodies to play acronym bingo. We heard from UKRI, IUK, the local MP, and DCMS. We heard the fantastic conversation at the beginning of the day between Kwejo and David, talking about the horrible conditions that Kwejo has been doing his activism around, but then some inspirational design solutions and way that design is making its way through. We heard from Michael and the panel on the energy crisis and some practical actions that we can take, but also some big policy questions that design perhaps has an answer for. We heard from Asha and we heard from Stephanie on the power of data and science and design coming together. And then that fantastic panel, just really deep reflection from Almira and the panel on designing for, with, and by communities. And then finally that panel we had from Alice on materials. And I think we welcome thoughts from everyone here today on how those things can be brought together and where there might be really exciting collaborations that can be formed in this group.
Absolutely, because sometimes at the end of the day, when you listen to so many different topics, you think about the climate crisis, you hear about how we can decolonize design, it can feel quite depressing as a note. And I think this is a challenge for us, because it's very easy to think about this as doom and gloom, see the events that are happening outside. And this is where the stubborn optimism that we spoke about. And also there's a great book, From Good to Great, and there's this thing called Stockdale Syndrome that Jim Collins touches upon, when somebody's been taken as a prisoner of war, I forget his name, but he never loses sight of the fact that he could be released, and he comes back and figures out how he can create new kind of systems. So right now we have in some way co-opted, co-designed these systems which have entrapped us, whether they are social, economic, technological, but we also have the agency and power, like we heard from the panel today, on how we can use other kinds of areas. Like I still love the example of hip hop. We can use culture, we can try and learn from other places. Our growth rate in the UK right now is 0.2%, just to keep it humble. Because currently, if you think about growth being bad, we are doing a pretty good job about it. So we have to look ourselves in the mirror, because it's very easy again to slip into this idea that everything is bad, why not just stop consuming, stop creating more? And that's a cop-out. That makes me really furious as a designer. That would be the easy way out. And I think it's our responsibility to reimagine the systems, look at other countries where we're having 6.7% growth, 5.5% in China, and they have created systems, some of which is not really giving agency to their citizens, and they're growing very fast. So we have very good challenges for us to really step up as UK and take our growth rate, look ourselves in the mirror, and come up with new systems that can create abundance. And that's the challenge that we would love to put forward to all of you here and bring that back tomorrow.
Well, and Priya, I think they've been covering that online today. So one thing we can say is they've been looking at talks from how to decarbonise councils, hearing about Nottingham raising 10 million a year from their workplace policy levy. Parking levy, sorry. They heard about how AI can spark circular design decisions, and they heard about a particular technology called Design Spark, so do check out that talk online. There was a really fascinating talk we heard from Alicia and Rumbi about thrift, rent and repair in the fashion industry. And then the talk on how to design a green website apparently is really, really excellent about keeping things simple. And then finally, I think online, they ended the day with a talk about reducing the carbon footprint of packaging. And Alicia tells me there was a long discussion about potato packaging, but I don't know the details, so I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there for you to check it out online. For those of you joining in the room and online, we'll be back for day 2 starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. So please have a restful evening, reflect on what you've heard, and we'll see you tomorrow.